Servant, Episode 7, Haggis. I'm Joe. Please subscribe to this channel. So far, this show has really captivated me. Today is another example of what this show has done so well. And that is little hints, little pieces, little elements to the story. Shine a little light on something, not give everything away, sort of answer some questions, but sort of raise more questions. This episode did that very well. This episode, we enter Natalie. Well, Julian enters Natalie, but we'll discuss that later. In this episode, we meet Natalie, and she is the kinesiologist, the therapist, who suggested the real doll. We get a flashback in the very, very opening shot of when Dorothy's catatonic and is presented with the real doll. Come forward to the present. Dorothy's being worked on by Natalie, the kinesiologist, and the door slams. Who's that? It's Leeann. Who's Leeann? She's the babysitter. And Natalie's face says it all. You hired a babysitter for a real doll. Basically kind of gets fired by Dorothy, saying she's not going to need you. She wants to enter into a phase of self-healing. Sean comes home. Natalie goes upstairs to see what she hears upstairs, and Leeann comes up from behind her, rips her down by her hair before Natalie can see that there's an actual baby in there, so she's accosted by Leeann. Then she confronts Sean and says, you hired a nanny for a real doll? Of course, Sean is still going under the, is going to have to try to make her go under the premise that I'm doing what's right for my wife. Leeann plays along, and that sets up the scenario because later we find out that Dorothy did indeed invite Natalie over for dinner, and that's pretty much where the bulk of this episode happens. What dinner party would not be complete without Julian? He comes over, and we get one of the better scenes early where Julian comes over and says, you know, here's 20. He's got 20 grand. And Sean says, I got 8. Oh, you guys effing 8? And they basically are preparing payoff money for Uncle George. Because later in the episode, Julian says it's an incest rape situation. So maybe now they're going under the impression that Uncle George was the father of the baby that Leeann had. And he was coming to take her and the baby back. So they're getting payoff money ready. And then Sean says, if I need to raise more money, I'll sell the wine. And Julian, let's not overreact. So it's just what a great theme of what an absolute, lush these guys are. Once again, the cinematography on this show is fantastic. And the symbolism on this show is fantastic. The perfect example is the beginning of the dinner scene where they have the balloon in the middle of the 4 people. So you get these shots of them trying to talk to each other past the balloon, which was just really cool. And a little symbolism, a little symbolic maybe about the wall that's in between all these people in the scenario and the thing that's clouding everybody's vision, looking at the other person because of the absolute insanity of this scenario. So they kind of set that up early, and then he pops it because it was like an essence that went over the haggis he served. Episode goes along. At one point, Leeann goes in the basement and the floor cracks. Now, we've heard them say this house is falling apart earlier in the show, early in the season, but a crack just opens in the middle of the floor. Natalie tries to confront Dorothy. Dorothy snaps back, says, why'd you all set this up for me? Why does nobody ever think I know what's good enough for me? Thinking it's more about her being fired, firing the kinesiologist, when in reality she's trying to bring up the whole business of the real doll. But the other two are trying to stonewall her because they don't want to bring up the real doll because they know that there's a real baby upstairs, not a real doll. Episode goes along. We also have the theme of the kennel. We have the theme of a pack of feral dogs roaming the parks in Philadelphia. Goes along. You kind of see earlier in the episode a dog going through the back entrance. This is where Natalie goes upstairs again to look at the baby and discovers it's not a real doll, it's a real baby, right before being attacked by a rabid dog. And again, the cinematography on this show is so well because they do such a good job of not showing you completely the dog. Like, you just get glimpses of the thing, and maybe it's got blood on its mouth. You don't really know. Julian takes a wine bottle, murders the dog. Then business really picks up. Julian now is talking to Natalie, and Natalie says, what the hell? There's a real baby. Julian says, yeah, there's a real baby. We think the girl brought it. They both think the girl brought it. And what does she know so far? And then the questions start being asked. What really happened the night that baby Jericho died? All we've heard is that he died of SIDS, essentially. But it's been alluded to that there was something more that happened. What did you do? What did they do? What did Julian and Sean do? Were they in a drunk stupor? Were they in a drunk wine stupor and dropped the baby on his head? We don't know, because that's even later in the episode when she wants to walk Jericho down the stairs, or fake Jericho down the stairs. He says, you could trip and fall in your high heels you've been drinking. What happened to the baby? We don't know. All we know is that we're starting to really get the clues that something far more sinister happened than just SIDS. And that's why this whole scenario is in place, and that's why they're playing along, and that's why they feel like they have to go along with whatever Leann's doing. He can't sleep, he can't get an erection, and Natalie fixes him up real proper in the basement. It's just going along splendidly at this point. So that's the first big question that we've been wondering, that we didn't get an answer to, but we got a little bit more light shed on it. Then, when the dog was killed, Leann looks horrified. Leann goes upstairs, prays, goes in the basement, and then right as they're about to leave, as Julian's about to leave with Natalie, and he says, I'm taking her home with me, he goes to open the door to get the coat, because they must have left it down in the basement before they started banging, and the dog that they killed, that Julian smashed a wine bottle over, runs out of the house alive. And there we have it. So we got the cricket. We had the cricket that died, and then she started flogging herself that came back to life. Now we have a dog that came back to life. And we have a crack in the basement, and then we have her watching the evangelical minister talking about a coal in the ground will swallow up the wicked men. Wow. Basically just little bits of information, little light shed on everything. What the hell is happening? We don't know yet. All we know is that something very odd is happening, something sinister is happening, something potentially criminal happened with baby Jericho. Who knows what the supernatural deal is with Leann. Somehow she's making things come back to life. This baby, is this a baby she brought back to life? Very good episode. It sheds a lot of light on things. It sheds the guilt that Julian is feeling, because he was involved in this baby's death somehow, and that's why he's playing along, and that's why he's raising money. It also shows how Sean is sort of buying into it. Sean really wants to keep this baby. But at the same time, Natalie says she thinks it's Jericho. So you just want to carry on with life with Dorothy denying the fact that her real child is dead, possibly killed, with this baby that Leann brought in. You think? They think Uncle George is the father and they're trying to pay him off? I don't think so about that. There's something really weird going on with him. All I know is we got 3 episodes left for this season, and hopefully they give us some sort of answer at the end of this season. Even though I know they say they want to carry the show on for seasons and seasons, they got to give us some kind of answer to let us know what the hell's really happening. But fantastic. I love this show. I can't wait for the next episode. This episode was one of the better ones. Again, cinematography great, mood great. This was one of the first episodes that really incorporated other music. It had the bagpipes playing when they ate the haggis, and it had like a song playing later in the episode. But for the most part, the soundtrack is fantastic. The acting's really well done. Tell your friends to watch it. They'll like it. I think it's a good show, and hopefully it keeps going on. And hopefully you still watch these videos, and hopefully you enjoy these videos. So please subscribe to our channel. Until next time, I'm Joe.